What can I say? Well, to tell you this story, I must spread some background about me and Seema. I'm an Israeli guy, 17. When I was 16, I felt more lonely than ever. My need for a warm, gentle, understanding, and pretty lass to give me love back was strong enough for everyone to see. The guys of mine know about a fetish of mine connected to hair. I still love, touching and playing with a girl's hair. Thus far is the only hair fetish of mine they knew about. In the secrets of my heart, I shaded the other hair fetish of mine, the love of watching the 000 blades of sharp clippers cutting a girl's hair out to bald. I remember that shortly after I discovered that fetish in me, I was very surprised to see a lot of haircutting related net sites, and even a service of videos showing girls getting clipper cuts. Although those sites were the loving of short hair on women's sites, and I still am, a lover of long hair, it didn't disturb me enjoying those sites. One day, the luckiest day in my entire life, a day I'll thank to God all of my life for having this day to happen to me, I met Seema. Seema was a very special girl, for all kinds of reasons. She was about my age, had deep and shiny dark green eyes, a shy and touching smile, gentle lips, beautiful brown hair, which reached till her shoulders, and a very special name. Seema is the Hebrew word for snow. I've never met anyone else having this name. This wonderful day, I went to Tel Aviv to visit the biggest mall in Israel, in order to buy some CDs and books. Now, I'm collecting CDs of soundtracks, not songs, but music soundtracks. Very few people I know have the love for pure music, that means not songs but melodies. That's why the soundtracks shelves in CD stores have very few people standing by them. When I reached the store, I noticed Seema, of course still not knowing her, standing by the soundtracks shelves. At first, I just searched for an interesting soundtrack, not doing anything about the sight of this beautiful girl next to me. I have a love for a simple look, and that's the reason why I think Seema is stunning while others agree she's pretty but not stunning. And right there, 2 meters from me, she's searching the S-shelf. After a short time, which seemed to me forever, I had the courage to start a talk. There I said, "What are you looking for?" As she opened her mouth to answer, the most beautiful voice I've ever heard came out of it. "I'm searching for the Speed soundtrack." In 5 seconds I found it for her. I froze, knowing there was nothing I could say to her. Luckily, she asked me, "Do you know something about it? 'Cause I'm quite new to this, and I don't know if it's good enough to buy." Of course, I have this one at home. It's a must-have. Believe me, you want to buy this one. Oh, thanks. And then there was silence. She made her way to the cashier and I felt I must not let her go away. Her look was absolutely what I dreamt about all my life. So there I found myself taking the first CD I saw. I was standing by the D shelf, so I took Dragonheart, which was found out to be a great CD, and walking towards her. We both paid for our CDs and went out of the store. I walked near her, and I could see she was embarrassed. So I started to talk a little. "So, you say you're new in this business?" "Yeah, I am." Her smile, my God, her smile. "How did you get into it?" "I'm a movie freak, and one day after I saw Jurassic Park I saw in a CD store the soundtrack. I listened to it and the music simply made me cry." "Yeah, the Jurassic soundtrack is good. I have it. It sounds like you're kinda old in this thing." "I am. I've been collecting for 2 years now." She smiled, half embarrassed, half politely. And the silence again. "What's your name?" "Seema. Yours?" "I'm Ron. Nice to meet you. You have a wonderful name." "Well, thank you very much. So, where are you going?" "I thought of getting something to eat in Burger King or something like that. Mind if I join you?" My heart couldn't bear the tension waiting for her answer. She smiled a bit, considering the option of eating lunch with me. "No, yes. Okay, I know you're getting angry. You want to get to the haircutting scene, if you haven't abandoned my story yet. I'm coming to it. Just wait a little more." And that's how I met Seema. I found out she lived in a city 2 miles north from my town, and I found out she was the perfect class I always wanted for myself. She gave me her phone, and since then we've been together. While our relationship was developing, she noticed every time we met that besides hugging her, kissing her and holding her hands, this is something I enjoy very much. Whenever we sit somewhere I love taking one of her hands and petting it. I love to touch her hair and play with it. Once I asked her if it bothers her, but she said it didn't. One of the things we love to do together is going to the beach, lying on the sand, looking at the stars and talking. We both shy, so our sexual relationship back then wasn't anything more than hugs, kisses, hands touching and things like that. One day, when we talked on the phone, she told me she intends to audition for an Israeli movie. I wished her luck, and was very happy for her. The day of her audition, I phoned her to hear how it went. "Hi Seema. What's up?" "Nothing." Her voice sounded lifeless. "What do you mean nothing? How was the audition?" "Okay. Did you pass or not?" "I passed it." "Great. I'm so happy for you. Aren't you happy?" "I'm happy," she said again with no excitement at all. "Honey, what's wrong?" "Nothing." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." The few days after the audition she was more serious than ever, and she was already more serious than other girls when she was herself. She always claimed nothing was wrong. I didn't manage to understand her sudden silences and thinking face. One day that week, when we were on the beach, lying on the sand and talking, she started to talk about it. "Do you like my hair?" "Of course, you know how I love playing with it, and you know I think you have lovely hair." "No, I mean, is my hair like the only thing you like in me?" "Honey, don't be ridiculous." I kissed her. "Don't you understand I really love you? I mean, you're the best thing that has happened to me in my life. I really love you." "Okay," she sobbed. "Seema honey, what's wrong? Will you love me even if I cut my hair?" she asked, starting to wipe away tears. "Yes, of course I will." I kissed her and touched her face. "I mean really short, will you love me?" Now she was actually crying. "Listen, I love your hair. But I love you more. I'll love you no matter what length your hair is. Do you understand?" I tried to make her understand it. She moved her face up and down, in order to say she understands. "Why do you want to cut it?" I asked after she cooled down a bit. "This audition, yes. I got the part, but I have to." Crying again, "I have to shave my head in order to play it." I gave her time to wipe away her tears. "Look, I love your hair, but if you decide you want to do this I'll still love you. I'll support you whatever your call is, but it's your call, not mine. Do you want to see the movie?" "Yes, very much, but I'm afraid of shaving all of my hair," she sobbed. "I mean, I like my hair very much, and I don't know whether to do this or not." I looked at her beautiful face. It would really be a shame to shave this beautiful brown hair, which made her look very beautiful, yet the thought of pushing the clippers into her shoulders length hair turned me a bit on. If you ask me, I preferred she wouldn't do it, because I loved her hair very much, and I was afraid that if she shaved her head she might like it and never grow it again. "I'm willing to accept every choice you make," I said. "You must have been thinking about it the last few days, haven't you?" "Well, yes. I think I want to do this, but I was afraid that you wouldn't want me if I did, and I don't want to lose you." "You won't lose me. I won't let it happen. Never. Under any circumstances." And I meant that. It took her time, but after a few days she decided that she was going to do it, a bit excited, a bit scared, but she went for it. Me? I was shaking those days. I was really scared she wouldn't grow her hair again. I was afraid to ask her to grow it, because it might give her clue I hadn't wanted her to do it, and I wanted to make the impression I'm with her on every call she makes. "I want you to do this," she said to me the day she made up her mind. "What?" "I want you to shave my head. I cannot do this without you." "Oh, okay." I couldn't resist asking her. "Listen, I want you to promise me." "What?" "I want you to promise me you'll grow your hair back." Silence. "I will, I promise. I love my hair, I will grow it back." I felt very relieved. All that I had to do then was to enjoy shaving her head. The day had come, and they were almost ready to shoot the movie. I took Seema to my apartment, thanking me very much that my family was in Cyprus for the weekend, so I had an empty house. As she realized it was about to happen, she was a bit sad. I didn't know she liked her hair that much, almost as much as I liked it. I'm still sure I liked her hair more than she did. And that, my friends, is the part where the action begins. I wore my hair long, so I had to buy clippers especially for the event. I took my scissors, and when I came with the equipment to the living room, I saw her sitting on the rug, crying. I knew I had to be gentle on that cut. I combed her hair, as if saying goodbye to it. At that moment I thought her hair was so beautiful, stronger than all the time I knew her. "Are you sure about that?" "Yes." "Are you ready?" Pause. "Yes." With that I took the scissors, and before cutting her hair with them I regretted and took the clippers immediately. As I turned them on, her sobbing went a bit stronger. I kissed her crown. "Please give me your hand," she sobbed. I gave her my right hand, held it strongly, and the only thing I could say at that moment was, "I love you." With that I pushed the clippers into her hair, from front to crown. The brown hair, which I loved so much, started to fall down to the rug with every move that I did with the clippers. Her scalp was seen. I felt my little tears. I pushed the clippers very gently and slowly, to be as gentle as I could. When I finished the first level, her front was totally bald, while her sides and back were still with shoulder-length shiny thick brown hair. The sight made me cry. I continued by clipping her left side, knowing that to shave her right side I'd need to take my hand from her. I sat behind her, and I didn't want to do this. I finished clipping her left side and her back. I sat there, listening to her sobs. "Honey." No answer. "Honey, I need my hand please." I felt I could cry asking her for my right hand back. She let go of my hand. I passed the clippers to my right hand and started clipping her right side. The sight of her beautiful hair falling on the rug turned me on, but it hurt too. Finally I was done. I put my hands on her scalp. It felt weird, and I felt I already missed her hair. She was really sobbing. I pulled her backwards and held her tight. I kissed her cheek. Her shoulders looked different without her hair touching them. We both got up. "Go see yourself in the mirror." And she went, wiping her tears on her way, tears that burst again when she watched herself in the mirror. She touched her scalp with her hands. She came to me. I hugged her very tight. My eyes when hugging her were concentrated on the pile of gorgeous brown hair that was once hers. As much as I wanted to, I couldn't lie to myself. I didn't like it. I enjoyed the shaving a bit, but not the result. After the shaving I recall she said, "I swear to God, I'm never gonna do this again." I was glad she didn't like her bald scalp. That promised to me that I would manage to put my hands on her hair, like I love to do. Days have passed, almost 1 year. The movie wasn't a success. Pity. Neither Seema nor me think that it was good, and we're a bit disappointed. Seema became a bit rich in her teens. She is saving her money for university. As she promised, she grew her hair back. It's almost the same length as it was before the shaving. I was amazed to see how quickly it grew. Our relationship developed some more, and not long ago we were necking and she was without her shirt and pants. I love her very much, and I must say I enjoyed the amount of love she has started to give me since that haircut. The sight of her hair touching her shoulders again makes me the happy. "Let's go, Amy," said Penny as their boyfriends emerged from the front door of Carlisle Vocational High School. Walking in a straight line toward the throng of students making their way home at the end of the school day, it didn't take Steve and Rick long to notice them. "Hello ladies," said Steve with his usual boyish charm. "To what do we owe the pleasure?" "Stephen Joseph Patterson, you shut up," replied Penny nastily to her boyfriend. "Don't you dare pretend nothing's wrong." "Yeah, you too Richie Anthony Scalario," added Amy to her own bow. "Boy are you in trouble." Eve and Rick, best friends for as long as they could remember, glanced at each other, hoping one of them would know why the girls were so upset. Instead, they were met only with each other's confused looks. "Don't even think about playing dumb right now," Penny cautioned Steve. "I saw you staring at those new girls all day, and don't think for a minute that you're going to get away with it." "Same goes for you, Rick," said Amy. "I want an explanation." Steve and Rick knew immediately they'd been caught red-handed. Both had been ogling the Anderson twins, Carlisle's newest addition to its junior class, all day. As he did in virtually all situations, Rick let the more diplomatic Steve take over from here. "Come on Penny, Amy, we weren't staring at them. Can't two guys be friendly to some twins who just moved in from out of town? I mean, it's their first day and all." "Yeah, two guys probably could," conceded Penny, "but not two maggots like you. Don't think for a minute that Amy and I don't know what you've been talking about all day. You two will just have to make a choice. It's either us, or the Anderson twins, and believe us, those girls don't look like they put out half as much as we do, right Amy?" Both boys nervously looked around, praying that none of the other students' parents had heard what Penny just said. Practically everyone at school knew that Steve and Rick had been tagging the girls ever since last September when they'd met as sophomores, but the boys could certainly do without some nosy parent in this small town calling their houses and letting their own parents know what was going on. "Penny, please, Lower your voice, pleaded Steve. All right. I'm not going to pretend that Rick and I weren't looking at them, but they mean nothing to us, really. It's just that, I dunno. When you see new girls like that, you just have to, I dunno, check 'em out I guess. Rick rolled his eyes. Steve wasn't doing a very good job of getting them out of this mess, and Rick himself was ready to take a stab at it when Amy quickly interrupted. It's their hair, isn't it? I saw how you two were staring at their hair, all blonde and long, practically down to their butts. I bet if it weren't for that, you'd probably think they'd look like the rest of the dogs at this school, wouldn't you? Steve hesitated for the slightest of moments before realizing that Penny had given them away out of this mess. Of course, he replied, yeah, it's their hair, that's what we were staring at. You girls caught us red-handed. From the corner of his eye, Steve saw Rick bow his head. Further at the lie, the Anderson twins had a lot more going for them than just their hair, but if Penny and Amy wanted to believe it was all about hair, that was fine with them. Just like I thought, said Penny, apparently satisfied that they'd gotten to the root of the problem. With a gleam in her eye, she said, let's all meet at my house tonight at 7:30. I have a little plan for how you boys can get back in our good graces. Come on, Penny, that seems a bit drastic, doesn't it? Penny wasn't having any of Steve's objections tonight, especially not after what he and Rick had admitted to earlier today. Yeah, I mean, we could all get suspended for doing something like that, maybe even expelled, added Rick. You boys should have thought of that before you decided to stare at those two Anderson bitches, don't you think? Replied Amy. Rick felt like finally being honest with the girls, finally telling them that it wasn't the Anderson girls' hair that had led Steve and him to take such an interest in them, but he decided to keep quiet because, in the end, he knew it would just make matters worse. Fine, then, said Penny, we all know what we have to do tomorrow. Amy, I'll see you in the salon room after school. Heather, Amy, you remember us from yesterday, don't you? I'm Steve Patterson, and this is my friend Rick Scalario. We're in history class together. The Anderson twins giggled at the boys like they did at most everything these days. Finally Heather, the more assertive one, spoke up. Of course we remember. How could we forget such cute guys, huh Amy? Another round of giggles ensued before Steve began to enact the plan that Penny had laid out last night. Hey, have you girls heard about the salon class down in the basement? It's the room where all the kids studying hairstyling go to practice. It's set up just like a regular salon, only the last hairstyling class ends at noon every day and, well, it's sort of become a hangout place for kids after school, if you know what I mean. Always a charmer. Steve slowly wrapped his arm around Heather's shoulder as he spoke, bringing home to her just what he meant by a hangout place. Yeah, added Rick as he slid his arm around the other of the Anderson girls. How'd you like to go and check it out with us? It was a little frightening how well Penny's plan had worked. Like lambs to the slaughter. Heather and Amy Anderson followed their male escorts to the quiet, out-of-the-way salon class in the basement of the high school. Rick and Steve sat each of the girls in one of the two salon chairs facing the wall-length mirror. After making out with them in the dark for a few moments, the lights suddenly flicked on and a stern voice came from the back of the room. Now, with their arms already wrapped around the Anderson twins, the boys had no trouble subduing them as soon as they'd heard Penny's command. Quickly stuffing rags in their mouths to silence their screams, it took only moments to bind their arms and legs together with the ropes Amy had supplied for them. Good work, guys, said Penny as she approached the now captive twins. So good, in fact, that Amy and I will pretend that you weren't really enjoying running your grubby little hands over little Heather and Amy, won't we Amy? Turning her sarcasm and attention toward the girls, Penny continued, I don't believe we've met. My name is Penny. And this is my friend Amy. I see you've already met our boyfriends, Steve and Rick. Amy looked nervously toward her sister. Regardless of where they'd grown up, the girls knew intuitively that the way in which Penny had said the words our boyfriends meant that trouble was brewing. My what lovely hair you girls have, remarked Penny as she stepped behind the salon chairs to survey Heather and Amy's long blonde ponytails, each wrapped with a length of pink ribbon. Must have been the pride of that little backwater town you both came from, huh? I can see it. Now, Heather and Amy Anderson winning the Little Miss contest at the same fair that your family pig won the Best Livestock Award. Must have been a proud moment for you too. Let's get a better look at all this hair, shall we Amy? Picking up two large pairs of heavy salon scissors from off the counter, Penny and Amy carefully snipped off the pink ribbons that held the twins' ponytails together. Watching the manies splay themselves out across the twins' backs as the shorn ribbons wafted silently to the floor. "Ah, simply breathtaking," said Penny as she watched the girl's hair sway momentarily from side to side. Though she'd said it sarcastically, it really was quite an impressive sight. Though she'd never admit it to Steve, Penny was beginning to understand why the boys had been so attracted to this hair. "Absolutely," chimed Amy, who didn't seem to be sharing in Penny's enthusiasm for the hair. "Why, it must make you girls nervous just to sit in a place like this, knowing how much hair has hit the floor in here over the years." "Penny, do you remember the time Miss Scott, the girls' basketball coach, agreed to let the team cut her hair here after they won the state championship? She had long blonde hair just like you girls, and damned if anybody could even tell what color the floor tiles were after the team had tossed it all over the floor in celebration." Standing toward the back of the room, Steve and Rick fidgeted nervously as their girlfriends taunted the soon-to-be shorn Anderson twins. Even if they had the guts now to tell Penny and Amy that it hadn't been the girls' hair they'd been attracted to, it would probably only make their girlfriends angrier and more jealous because they'd think it was the boys' way of trying to save the poor twins and their precious hair from what was about to happen. No, as bad as they felt over what was about to happen, Steve and Rick knew that to intervene would only make matters worse. "I remember that," answered Penny. "I remember walking by here after school and seeing the janitor sweep all Miss Scott's hair out into the hallway, so he could sweep it all away later on when he came by with that long mop he uses to sweep the corridors. There was so much of it." "Yeah, there sure was, but it'd probably be nothing compared to what this place would look like if Heather and Amy were to get their hair cut. Don't you think?" "Oh, definitely," responded Penny, enjoying the way the twins flinched in unison as it became clearer to them what was about to happen. But why would anyone want to cut off hair so beautiful as this? By now Penny had grasped a section of the long hair that cascaded down to within a foot of the floor behind the chair in which Heather Anderson sat. As nervous as Heather was at having Penny grab hold of her hair, she was made hopeful by the question she had just posed. "Penny, don't you remember? You and I had applied last year to get into the hairstyling program here, but we didn't make the cut, so to speak. Maybe if we were to show what we can do on the Anderson girls here, they'll let us in the program." Amy was really entering into the spirit of the evening now, fired by the look of apprehension on Rick's face. So her boyfriend didn't like the idea of the pretty twins losing their locks. He'd really like the girls by the time she'd finished with them, not. "Amy, you've got it in one." Penny grinned, fingering the thick, luscious lock of blonde hair slowly and languorously. Heather tried to wriggle free, but she was firmly bound, her hair shimmering as she struggled against the rope holding her to her chair. Steve and Rick exchanged glances. This was all getting a bit weird for them. They'd gone along with their girlfriend's plan, but they'd really thought all Penny and Amy wanted to do was to scare the Anderson twins, which is patently what they'd done. Tears were beginning to trickle down Amy's face. Steve cleared his throat. "Penny, hasn't this gone far enough? You've made your point." Penny flashed a bitter glance at Steve. "Not yet, Stevie baby," she jeered, making the Stevie baby sound like an insult. "I'm going to show you what I do when you flirt with other women. And I'm going to show these girls what happens when they flirt with my man." She snapped the blades of the large scissors together twice, and they echoed in the hollow emptiness of the salon. "Heather, my sweet, another insult. You need a trim." And with that Penny grabbed the thickness of Heather's hair, held it in a ponytail near the end of its length, and lopped off 6 inches haphazardly. One side of her hair was now cut shorter than the other. "You call that a trim?" snorted Amy. "It's crooked. Look, this is a trim." She positioned the scissors about 10 inches from the bottom of Amy's hair, and cut straight across it. Penny peered at Amy's work. "Well, I suppose it's straighter than mine, but I wouldn't call it a trim. You can barely see the hair's been cut. It's so goddamn long. Watch this trim." Again she gathered Heather's hair into a ponytail, and this time cut it off at shoulder length. It took her several seconds to sever the thick hair, and, when she'd finished, she held it in front of Heather's stricken face like a trophy. "How about that for a trim?" She dropped the shining blonde tresses on Heather's knees, and they slithered to the floor. Heather said, and Penny took the rag out of her mouth. "Got something to say?" Heather said softly. "Penny, I'm sorry. I had no idea Steve was your boyfriend. Please don't cut any more off my hair." "Too late, sweet cheeks. You should know by now the cutest guys in school are always taken. This should remind you. And Penny picked up a lock of Heather's hair at the back of her head and cut it off to about an inch long. Heather wailed, "No." As Heather raised her voice, Penny stuffed the rag back in the other girl's mouth, and Heather's protests were muffled. Only her eyes showed the anguish she was feeling. In the next chair Amy was struggling valiantly, but the ropes held fast. The chairs themselves were immovable, bolted to the floor so students couldn't steal and sell them. "Hold still, Amy," Amy said with mock kindness. "I can't cut your hair off when you struggle. At least not neatly. It'll be all ragged, and I'll have to cut it shorter and shorter until I get it right." Amy moaned and stopped moving, looking at her reflection in the mirror with the gaze of a rabbit caught in the shooter's sight. "Well, looks like Penny's got a jump on me," Amy said conversationally. "I'll have to catch up here." She gathered Amy's flowing locks into a ponytail high at the back of her head, and held it about 6 inches out. Let's see, the laws of physics and probably the laws of hairdressing as well tell me this should produce a layered cut if I position the scissors just here." She began sawing through Amy's hair just in front of her thumb. As predicted, the hair fell back in layers as she cut it, the longest layers reaching Amy's jaw, the shortest being about 3 inches long at the back of Amy's head. "Hey, Penny, what's the rule about layered cuts again?" "All layers are usually cut to the same length," Penny obliged, watching Amy's handiwork and Amy's stricken face with equal satisfaction. Heather, on the other hand, was staring in horror as her sister's hair was cropped to an uneven bob. "Damn," said Amy in mock anger. "Would you look at that? This bit here is much longer than the front. Guess I'll just have to cut the front shorter." "That's the idea," Penny said. "Here, I'll show you." Heather, picking up a comb, she drew a section of Heather's hair out perpendicular to her head, and cut it off in a straight vertical line about 2 inches away from Heather's scalp. The hair fell neatly in layers, barely covering Heather's ears. "Now, I'll go all around Heather's head like this." She demonstrated again, picking up a thicker lock of hair and lopping it off. "Oh, I see." Amy picked up a comb and did the same. "Bet I can cut it shorter than you." She held Amy's hair firmly and with exquisite slowness cut through it barely an inch away from Amy's head. Amy wriggled as she watched her hair get shortened so dramatically. Amy dropped the severed locks in front of Amy's face. Steve and Rick watched in silence, awestruck, a little frightened and more than a little turned on by the assertiveness of their respective girlfriends. If they'd admitted it was the Anderson twins' minds and bodies which had attracted them, God only knows what Penny and Amy would have done. At least the twins were only getting a haircut, and no matter how much you sabotaged hair with scissors, it grew back. Penny and Amy kept cropping. Penny decided not to bother any more with the comb, but merely picked up handfuls of Heather's scented blonde waves and lopped them off. Amy kept up the pretense of care, combing out Amy's hair carefully and admiringly before slowly cutting through it, enjoying the sight as the short hair fell close to Amy's head. "Hey, Penny," Amy said, as she was halfway through the back of Amy's tresses. "I think I'm getting the hang of this now, but Amy's got so much hair to cut off, and it's so thick. This is going to take ages." "These girls really are identical twins," Penny agreed. "Thick skulls, thick hair. I've found the best way to cut it off is just to grab a handful. There's so much hair it's the only way to get through it all. I just do this." She picked up a thick, beautiful lock of shoulder-length hair and held it so taut that Heather arched her back in pain, and this. With one swoop of the large scissors the hair was snipped off and Penny was throwing it down on the floor disdainfully. "You boys, don't just stand there. Get a broom and start sweeping this up. There's so much hair on the floor I'm slipping on it," Penny complained. "Look at this shit. Ugh, there's hair all over me." Steve and Rick almost tripped over themselves to find brooms and dustpans. They'd never seen their girlfriends in quite this kind of mood before and weren't about to argue. Wordlessly the boys swept the shining tresses away from the chairs. Neither of them could look into the mirror and meet the anguished eyes of the two Anderson girls with their ragged, chopped hair. "Where do you want it?" Steve asked finally, showing Penny the large pile of fluffy blonde hair. "Leave it here and we'll burn it before we go," Penny declared, moving next to Heather's chair again and finishing the layered crop with 2 large snips. "What do you think, Amy?" "Not bad," Amy considered. "But I think you could go shorter at the neck. You know, turn it into some kind of bowl cut. I've got just the thing for that." Penny grinned evilly as she plugged in the big black clippers. These should make Heather have the tidiest neck she's ever had. All these silly little curls she's got at her hairline are gone, baby. With a flourish, Penny flicked the clippers to life. Heather noticed to her dismay that the blades had no guard on them. I hate a messy neck. Don't you? Penny said. I thought about trying clippers over comb, but I've never been very good at that. And damn me if I can find a guard for these clippers. They all must be lost somewhere. So we'll have to go for a clean skin look. Brutally she pushed Heather's head forward until the girl's chin was almost touching her chest, and placed the naked blades on Heather's neck. The salon was silent, except for the hum of the clippers as Penny moved them up and shaved right up the middle of Heather's nape, all the way to the occipital bone. Heather's skin was very white, paler even than her blonde hair. Oh, yeah, said Amy. I think I'll go look for Amy, too. After all, twins should look like twins. She was still cropping Amy's hair to its 1-inch layer, and had, at last, come to the final section. With a sigh of satisfaction, she cut off the last lock. Damn, I've cut this bit shorter than the rest. I'll have to even it up. Just use the clippers when I've finished, suggested Penny, positioning the buzzing blades on Heather's neck again and shaving a path up the back of the girl's nape. They take a bit of getting used to as there's no guard, but I'm sure you'll be able to get the hang of them in no time. She buzzed the other side of Heather's neck. There? Now, isn't that nice? No more of that messy hair on your neck? Let's see about making this great bowl cut of mine even now. Penny used the clippers to make the ends of Heather's cut straight. It looked perfect until she, deliberately, let the clippers bite into Heather's head above her ears. Oh, dear? Would you? Look at that? My bowl cut is ruined? I'll have to take it all shorter. Heather struggled violently, but the rope still held fast. Penny put her hand on Heather's head. No moving, now, Heather. If you move, why, these clippers will slip and who knows what might happen. Something like this, maybe. Abruptly Penny moved the clippers against the top of Heather's head and shaved a bald patch about 2 inches long. Steve and Rick gasped. Even Amy's eyes bulged. Heather began to cry, realizing her hair was well and truly ruined. Tears trickled down her cheeks from her puffy eyelids, and when she sniffed she could barely breathe. Well, there's only one thing for it, isn't there? Penny said conversationally. You can't go around with a bald patch like a middle-aged man. That looks downright stupid. The only solution is to shave your hair all off. Heather wriggled desperately, her head swinging from side to side. Steve, Penny commanded. Come here and hold Heather's head while I shave her bald. Gulping, Steve put a firm hand on either side of Heather's head and attempted to hold it still. Penny placed the clippers at Heather's forehead, and drew them back through the girl's hair, peeling it away from her scalp. In one long pass she buzzed from the front all the way to the back, past the crown and onto the back of Heather's head. Well, I might not be the world's greatest cutter, but I'm pretty sure I'd get top marks for head shaving, Penny said to the salon in general, placing the clippers once more at Heather's forehead. Again she pushed them into Heather's thick hair, enjoying the sensation of watching it all fall away. She stroked the shaven scalp. Now, Heather, that feels much better than all that hair. I'm sure the boys will love patting your little bald head. At least any boys other than our boyfriends will. Penny finished clipping the top of Heather's head, and positioned Steve's hands so he was holding it to one side. See if you can pull the skin just a little bit. So I can shave it closer, she suggested. The clippers hummed like angry bees in Heather's ear as Penny clipped away the hair in front of it. She shaved Heather's temple, watching in satisfaction as the waves fell to the floor and the pale white skin was exposed. Delicately she pushed Heather's ear forward and nuzzled the clippers up behind it, buzzing there twice to get rid of stray hairs. Satisfied, she repositioned Heather's head to shave the back. Well, I almost forgot I'd shaved half of it. This should be quick. Swiftly she shaved off the fringe of hair left between Heather's crown and her shaved nape. The hair left on Heather's head bounced out almost indecently from her scalp, and Penny delightedly pushed the girl's head to the other side and pressed the blades against it. In 20 more seconds all Heather's hair had been shaved and lay on her shoulders in tufts and clumps. Heather's face was blotchy and red from crying, and her naked scalp stood in stark white against it. Penny found the soft brush used to dust hair away from students' necks, and dusted Heather's face, neck, and scalp with flourishes. Oh, yes, much better than all that stupid long, blonde hair. She handed the clippers to Amy. How creative are you feeling, Amy? I'm thinking high and tight flat top for starters. Amy grinned evilly, running her fingers through Amy's short crop and making it stick out. My talent for scissor work isn't the greatest, as you can see. This is all a bit uneven. But I'm sure I'll do much better with the clippers. With that, Amy switched them on, and grabbed a handful of hair on top of Amy's head to hold her still. She positioned the clippers in front of Amy's ear, and pushed them up to the top of Amy's temple, flicking the locks off the blades expertly. Hey, these things are so easy to use, Amy exclaimed. You can cut the hair off real quick. And real short? Just look at this skin. Still holding Amy's head firmly, she shaved away the hair around the girl's ears, running the clippers over Amy's scalp several times until she was sure it had all been shaved to the skin. Then she pushed Amy's head forward, and contemplated the back. She had hacked off most of Amy's hair in a messy layered cut, but a few softly curling tendrils still hung down the girl's neck. Not for long. Amy delightedly held the clippers against Amy's nape, and buzzed up the back of her head, sending more tendrils, waves, tufts, and curls tumbling to the floor. When it came to the second pass up the back, she shaved more slowly, savoring the moment. How does that feel, Amy? Nice and cool? Can you imagine what the back of your head looks like right now? Half of it still has hair, the other is smooth and bald. Not a good look, Amy. The only thing to do is to shave the rest of it. Amy shuddered with tears as she felt her hair being shorn to the scalp, the blades tickling against her skin. Hair flew from Amy's head in a dust-mote cloud of blonde. Then Amy was behind Amy's other ear, clipping off all the hair and watching it tumble to Amy's shoulders. She ran her hand over Amy's scalp to make sure she hadn't missed any hairs on the back or sides of her head. Okay, that's the high and tight bit done. Let's see about the flat top. Amy contemplated the top of Amy's head, which resembled a pineapple, hair sticking out in all directions. Want to use a comb? Suggested Penny, admiring her friend's handiwork with the clippers. Hey, nice shave. She stroked Amy's head and Amy flinched. No, I'll go freehand. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Amy grinned evilly. She positioned the clippers at Amy's forehead, about a quarter inch away from the girl's scalp, and slowly drew them backwards. Well, would you look at that? Sometimes I surprise myself. That's pretty straight, wouldn't you say, Penny? Penny inspected. I'm impressed. Amy cut a second path, holding the clippers as steady as she could, pushing them through Amy's thick locks until she reached the shaven back. She was really beginning to feel she had a talent for this kind of hairdressing. 2 more passes and Amy was the proud possessor of what passed as a flat top. It's a bit uneven, said Amy sadly. I guess practice makes perfect, though. She brushed her hands over Amy's head. Oh, what the hell? I think I'll just shave the lot. Then you won't be able to tell these two little sluts apart. And with that, Amy swiftly put the clippers against Amy's head and buzzed a path straight down the middle, shaving it clean. Yay, that looks better. Don't worry, Amy, all this stupid hair will be gone real soon. Amy kept good on her promise, shearing off the remains of Amy's hair in 2 more sweeping passes, then running the clippers all over the top of Amy's head to make sure she hadn't missed any stray hairs. Amy and Heather looked totally alike now, both bald, both with red faces and streaming eyes. Okay guys, Penny said to Steve and Rick. Not so attractive now, are they? No, Penny, said Steve. Not at all. Yuck, obliged Rick. Sweep, Penny commanded, and the boys hastily swept the useless locks of hair from the floor. The pile of hair cut off the Anderson twins was huge. It completely filled the metal waste paper bin Steve and Rick shoved it into. One last thing to do, Penny declared, taking a cigarette lighter from her bag. Get rid of all this hair so there's nothing to remind you guys about these twins ever again. She touched the flame to the cotton candy hair, and it burst swiftly into a crackling fire. Pooh, said Amy, doesn't it stink? Penny and Amy watched the Anderson twins' hair burn with immense satisfaction. After a minute or two the flame died down a bit and Penny decided it was time to leave. The smoke will set off the fire detectors soon. We'd better get out of here. The twins, Amy said. Leave 'em. The fire brigade will get them out. I mean, the fire won't spread from the bin. It's already dying. She glared at the twins, then at Steve and Rick. I hope that's taught all of you a lesson. With that she took Steve's hand and marched from the room. Amy and Rick, with a nervous backward glance at the terrified Andersons, followed. Once outside the salon, They ran from the school as the fire alarm started to shrill. Now, said Amy pleasantly, shall we all go to the drugstore and have a drink? All that work has made me thirsty. Numbly, the boys nodded. They walked to the drugstore in silence, Steve and Rick unable to think of a single thing to say. They were still stunned after watching their girlfriends being so pitiless with the harmless, pretty twins. Amy and Penny were feeling triumphant, convinced their beaux wouldn't be straying in the future. 4 Cokes, please, Rick said in a croaking voice to the waitress as he and Steve fell in their pockets for money. Oh, it's you two again, the waitress exclaimed pleasantly. She wore a name badge saying Kelly, and had shining, dark brown hair hanging down her back. I really enjoyed our chat yesterday. When are you going to take Carrie and me bowling? The other waitress, a gorgeous redhead, grinned and waved. Steve and Rick exchanged terrified glances. You must be mistaken, said Steve,